no one is being prosecuted for failing to make their rental payments.
This lawyer might not know about Keith Creer or the dozens of North Texans we found arrested after defaulting on a rent-a-center contract.
Welcome back, everybody. We're going to talk about the bad side of rent-to-own centers. Does she have a nose ring?
If you miss a car payment, your car might get repossessed. Miss a house payment, it gets foreclosed.
That's right, but here's something you may not know. Failing to pay your rent-to-own bill could land you in jail.
Yes, it really is happening right here in Texas. Tanya Eisner investigates.
When you're a mother,
I just want them to have all the things that I didn't have.
the last thing you want is to be separated.
This is somebody who wants to work for National Geographic. Just dandelion. A dandelion.
Separated from your child.
My kids were scared.
DeAndrea Lowe's daughter was a newborn when the cops came for her in 2000.
This is exactly the face that I would be giving if I was arrested for something like not paying a bill on a couch or a TV.
It was terrifying. It was like we murdered somebody or something.
Lowe, along with her then boyfriend, were charged with felony theft.
I told them I never rented from them, but it was my word against theirs.
Her then boyfriend had rented 2 used TVs and a used.
Is he actually in prison?
Sony.
All right, so is he in prison for not paying the rent-a-center? Or is this some other crime?
Boyfriend had rented 2 used TVs and a used Sony PlayStation from a rent-a-center. When the boyfriend didn't make the payments,
A used TV and a used Sony PlayStation. Keep that in mind. These are used items he's renting.
it was game over.
Because I was like, a felony? Wow.
The arrests were
so
made under
silly.
Texas laws covering rental contracts, even though Lowe didn't even sign the contract. Both of them were indicted.
What?
That's right. Indicted after he stopped making payments on rents at electronics.
She wasn't even there at the time when I even rented this stuff.
Yeah,
Critics
that's
say
crazy.
state law is on the side of rent-to-own companies. The
Of course it is. Rent to own it's a business, man. Any company that's a stock and a politician can own that stock, of course they're going to be on their side. Let's see how they've
law
been
pres-
let's see how they've been doing. Okay, so they're owned by Upbound Group. Let's see their 5-year returns. Not bad. 2021. Ooh, pandemic. Great times. But pretty decently up. 1 year, 1.77. I wonder what this spike is about here. 29 to 37. Huh. People were getting really scared at the beginning of July there.
The law presumes that customers who failed to pay may have outright stole the property.
But this is de facto debtor prison.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's what, like, Rent-A-Center is just acting as the credit card company.
Type of legislation, whereas someone could actually go to jail for not paying on a contract.
State Rep Nicole Collier of Fort Worth
That's
sits on a
crazy.
House panel looking at overhauling the law.
Law enforcement has their hands full. We don't need them going out there to enforce private contracts.
Private
Absolutely.
contracts that can involve
These TVs can't be worth more than like $500. These flat panels are so cheap, and they're used. I mean, you can get a used flat panel TV for $100 on Facebook Marketplace.
as a rented couch. La Angel Eccles
That's
is a single mother of 5.
We've never heard of, a law of if you're not making a payment, they're going to issue a warrant for you.
Eccles has successfully
real quick. If you haven't already, please go ahead and like this video if you're liking it, and if you like this type of content, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 100K subs by the end of the year. That would be great. Okay, so washer and dryers you can get for a set $200. $200 Facebook Marketplace. Couch $50. Free a lot of times if you just put in free couch whatever in your notifications on Facebook Marketplace. You'll get a couch within a few days. I don't care where you're located, small town, big town.
Eccles has successfully completed several rent-a-center agreements,
Those whirlpools are really high.
but she says she lost her job and fell behind on a rented TV.
They are bullies that don't deserve people's money.
But then came the call from a Dallas police detective.
Oh
She told
my
me if I
God.
didn't turn it in, that they was going to issue a warrant for my arrest, and that I would be prosecuted.
How frightening was that?
It was frightening. It was real frightening. That a felony. I don't. No, my background is completely clean. I would like to keep it that way.
She returned the TV, But the call was terrifying. Plano-based Rent-A-Center is the nation's largest rent-to-own company.
Small payments.
They boast in commercials that they do not do credit checks.
All without credit.
Some say that's...
Well, there you go. That's that's the problem is if they're just going to loan this stuff out to anybody and give it to them, of course you're going to have criminals that go in there and they got to have some sort of filtering.
Some say that's the problem.
And to hear that in this day and age, just to me, was absurd.
So when a customer quits paying, the company depends on the cops to step in.
You're putting it back on.
You're depending on the taxpayer.
You're putting it back on, overtaxed detectives and investigators to basically follow up on a case where you created bad paperwork and you didn't do your due diligence.
We tried.
Well, a lot of it's not worth it either. Like these couches aren't worth a lot of times more than $100 to send a cop out there and waste time just in gas, wear and tear on the vehicle, time, like the opportunity cost. They could be working on other things.
To get Rent-A-Center to answer questions on camera, they decline. But this is what one of the company's top lawyers had to say when he appeared before a state house committee.
No one is being prosecuted for failing to make their rental payments.
This lawyer might not know about Keith Creer or the dozens of North Texans we found arrested after defaulting on a Rent-A-Center contract.
It is about the return of that product. It is not about collecting money.
What's so crazy about this is you have to steal like $1,000 of stuff. I think it's like $990 worth of stuff in a lot of states before the police will actually come after you or prosecute you. And so like these like $500 TVs or $200 couches, it's just crazy that we're worried about spending our resources chasing down this such a small, pitiful amount of money.
A fraction of its rental contracts resulted in filed police reports out of tens of thousands of rental agreements signed in Texas.
99.28% of all of the stolen accounts don't qualify for criminal prosecution under our process.
Wait, did they not? They didn't say what percent.
Only a fraction of its rental contracts resulted in filed police reports.
What fraction?
Out of tens of thousands of rental agreements signed in Texas.
99.28% of all of the stolen accounts.
Of all of the stolen accounts, not of all the accounts.
For criminal prosecution under our process.
Rent-A-Center does not tell customers that they could face potential criminal penalties, and it's not in their contracts. Rent-to-own companies are required to put it in big, bold letters on their contracts in other states like Florida.
Without exception, everyone is shocked to learn that they could be criminally prosecuted for this.
Waco attorney Jason Milam told legislators he's represented more than a dozen clients in rent-to-own cases.
This law should be changed.
From what I understand, some of this stuff can be repoed. And so maybe the 98% they end up getting repoed, or do they just write it off the books?
Should you have ever been indicted to begin with?
No.
No.
It took more than a year, but the charges against Lowe were finally...
Especially her. She never even signed the contract. She could have known nothing about it.
You just basically accused me and you lied on me.
Rent-A-Center says it's just protecting its property. But people like Lowe and Eccles say customers deserve to know that rented TV could put them behind bars.
Let's imagine you're shopping for a new refrigerator. Let's say you decide on an LG stainless steel 22.
Do not buy LG. Do not buy LG. Do not buy Samsung. These are the cheapest fridges and they break down so quick. Do not buy them. I promise you, you will regret it.
2 cubic feet refrigerator with an ice maker. You can buy that at Home Depot for $1,300. Alternatively, you could buy that same exact refrigerator at Rent-A-Center for 0 money down and 99 weekly payments of $40. If you do the math, you'll end up paying about $4,000 over the course of a little under 2 years.
That's more than double.
That's the equivalent of a 150% annualized interest rate compared to the price at Home Depot. Despite charging astronomical effective interest rates, rent-to-own stores like Rent-A-Center are extremely popular in the US. There are over 10,000 rent-to-own stores in the country.
If somebody said how many RCAs, how many racks? How many racks? Let's see, 400 million people to 200 million racks. Rent-A-Centers. Let's just keep going.
Of regular shoppers. In this video, we'll take a deep dive into the economics of rent-to-own and why so many consumers choose to shop there. Rent-A-Center is the largest rent-to-own retailer in the US with over 2,000 brick-and-mortar locations as well as an e-commerce website. They sell high-ticket items including furniture, home appliances, and consumer electronics. While you can buy their products for a one-time cash payment if you want, the majority of their customers choose rent-to-own options. The leases are usually paid weekly and there are typically no down payments. The low monthly payment.
I wonder why Best Buy doesn't do this. I guess Best Buy has a credit card. They'd rather just get that money up front and not have to deal with the back end work of collections and all that.
Are an attractive option for cash-constrained consumers who don't have the cash on hand to purchase a refrigerator or television outright. Rent-to-own retailers give leases to pretty much anyone, and they don't require a credit check. This makes rent-to-own an attractive option for people with poor credit. In its investor presentations, Rent-A-Center brags about how poor its customers are. 25% of
Are they bragging about it, or are they just talking about it?
U.S. households have an annual household income of less than $30,000. 53% of Rent-A-Center's customers fall within this demographic. The average credit score of a Rent-A-Center customer is 535. Anything below 580 is usually considered bad. Thus, Rent-A-Center customers are unlikely to be approved for most.
Everyone else has a good enough credit that they can just put this on credit cards to buy a fridge, or they can just pay cash.
Credit cards and personal loans. If we look at Google Trends results for rent-to-own searches, the map looks almost exactly the same as the poverty heat map. The top 5 states for rent-to-own are Louisiana, Mississippi, West Virginia, Arkansas, and Alabama. The top 2 states, Louisiana and Mississippi, are both in the worst category, with over 18% of the population living below the poverty line. West Virginia and Arkansas are in the second worst category. Alabama is in the third worst category. If we look more generally, rent-to-own is popular in the Deep South and Appalachian regions of the United States, which are also the poorest regions. It is true that rent-to-own retailers offer a value proposition to low-income consumers with poor credit scores, but
something about this button, this shirt, the way it's fitting, it's very
this doesn't tell the entire
strange
story. Let's take the example of this Acer monitor, which you can rent-to-own at Rent-A-Center for $13 per week for 36 weeks. This gives a total cost of $467. This same monitor is available on Acer's website for $80.
Oh my God.
Even if you don't have $80 in your wallet to buy the monitor today, you'd only need to save $13 per week for 6 weeks to buy it outright. Are people really so impatient that they're willing to pay a 6 times higher price just to get an item 6 weeks earlier? Technically, the transactions are leases, not loans. So legally speaking, no interest is being paid. In the early 2000s, the state of Wisconsin sued Rent-A-Center as well as other rent-to-own retailers for violating consumer protection laws. Specifically, they alleged that rent-to-own retailers were deceiving customers by not disclosing the effective interest rates. The consumer protection laws in Wisconsin effectively made the rent-to-own business model unworkable.
I'm surprised that Rent-A-Center's stock price is even up, because a lot of the stuff that they're renting out, especially the TVs, don't they just go down in value every single year? Like a 4K TV you can get for $300 now, a flat panel. Maybe they're just renting out a lot of furniture, which has more of a stable pricing.
The consumer protection laws in Wisconsin effectively made the rent-to-own business model unworkable. In response, Rent-A-Center rebranded all of its Wisconsin stores to a new brand called Get It Now. Get It Now sells pretty much the same selection of products as Rent-A-Center, but instead of doing rent-to-own, they provide financing on all products. Let's take the example
See,
of
that's
this
what they should be doing in
Acer
every
Aspire Go
state.
laptop, which you can buy at Get It Now for 38 weekly payments of $20 each, plus 10%
30%. Oh, 10%. Okay, that's not bad. 10% down. But 29.9%. Holy crap. For 38 weeks. Ooh, what a business.
They claim that this represents a 30% APR. While 30% is kind of high, it's at least within the realm of what you might pay on a credit card. It doesn't seem too outrageous.
It's terrible.
Also, it's significantly lower than the effective APRs charged by Rent-A-Center. Remember, we calculated a 150% effective APR for the LG refrigerator when compared to the price at Home Depot. 30% is much lower by comparison. So does this mean the Wisconsin regulations were effective?
Still onerous.
No. Based on the information provided, we can calculate the price of the laptop. This is a bit more complicated than you might think, as you need to calculate the amortization schedule based on the weekly payments in APR. You can write some equations to solve this, but unless you have a math degree, the quickest option is to go to an online amortization schedule calculator and guess and check numbers. I did exactly that and found that the principal amount borrowed needs to be $681 to get to a 30% APR. Remember that there's also 10% down, so the total price of the laptop is $760 with a $76 down payment. I found the exact same laptop selling on Amazon brand new for $295, less than half of the implied price at Get It Now. That's how they try to trick people. They inflate the price of the product so they can advertise an artificially low APR. Now let's calculate the APR based on the real price of $295. The down payment is $76, so the principal balance of the loan is $219. To get to a $20 monthly payment, the APR is 455%. These interest rates are
Holy
obviously
crap.
absurd. But why do millions of Americans still shop at the likes of Get It Now and Rent-A-Center? Another subtle marketing gimmick they use is to charge weekly payments. Most subscriptions and interest payments are charged monthly. People subconsciously compare the weekly Rent-A-Center prices to their monthly bills, which makes it seem much cheaper than they actually are.
Yep, it's $80 a month, not really 20 a week. It's more than $80. It's like 80, ends up being like $84 a month.
Rent-to-own retailers cater towards consumers with bad credit scores, so naturally they suffer a large number of defaults. When you sign a lease with Rent-A-Center, you are required to provide a personal reference such as a friend, as well as a professional reference such as your boss at work. If you stop making your payments, Rent-A-Center representatives will start calling you, trying to get you to pay. In some cases, they'll call multiple times per day, starting on the first day after you miss the payment. If they can't reach you, they'll start calling your references.
No.
In many cases, Rent-A-Center customers
That
will
has to be
list their friends or
illegal.
bosses as references without their knowledge. The references will start receiving harassing calls from Rent-A-Center, asking
That's
them to get their friend
crazy.
or coworker
I think she just realized that she used strawberry jam instead of the grape.
to start making payments. This is a humiliating experience for the delinquent customer and serves as a
Yeah.
strong motivation to resume payments. Rent-A-Center will send their employees to confront delinquent customers in person, either at their home or their
Who would do
workplace,
that?
to either collect the payment or repossess the property. In case
I'm sorry, Josh. For a minute there, I was confused because that was a discount tire. So Rent-A-Center is recording them approaching someone, a Rent-A-Center employee?
this is where the customer still refuses to pay, Rent-A-Center will file a civil lawsuit against the customer. In extreme cases, they sometimes even file criminal charges. Because the property technically still belongs to Rent-A-Center during the term of the lease, their collection employees have far more latitude to engage in aggressive collection efforts as compared to traditional debt collectors.
That's crazy. Like, why are they wasting people's time? What if your balance is like $200 to pay the thing off, and they send an employee out there, and the employee spends half their day trying to collect, putting themselves at risk? They got to be paying these employees crap. Otherwise, why would it be worth the time?
Rent-A-Center's customers often live in impoverished and dangerous neighborhoods, which can often lead to unsafe situations for Rent-A-Center.
Somebody watching this who like lives in one of these townhomes. What the hell, man? My neighborhood's fine.
Center's collections managers. Here's a short clip from a YouTuber called Simba TV, who briefly worked for
Simba.
Rent-A-Center and shares his experience.
We knock on this dude's door that is like a week late on his payment. This big buff ass comes out and he looked like Tookie Williams. He's huge. He's like big.
Now, although he was never a competitive bodybuilder, there are many famous photos of Tookie Williams' physique. He was only 5 foot
That
10
guy's
inches
got a
tall,
watermelon for a forearm.
300 pounds, just typically walking around. The arms measured a very impressive 22 inches, and he was rumored to have a 20-inch neck. And he was notorious for being, a super heavy trainer and weightlifter during his time in prison in San Quentin. So in 1979, Tookie Williams was convicted of murdering 4 people. So a 7-Eleven employee, and then separately, an elderly Taiwanese couple and their daughter. So a total of 4 people. Then on December 13th, 2005, so nearly 40 years later, he was executed by lethal injection at the age of 50.
So for 40 years, he was hanging out with people who were in jail for not returning their Rent-A-Center items.
He's huge. He's like big tribal tattoos and stuff. I was scared. I was like, no, I'm not having it. He goes back up to the dude and tells him that he has to either take the TV or he has to pay him $100 to keep the TV. The dude basically tells him, get the off my porch, puts a gun out in his face and tells him to leave, right? I'm in a car. I don't want no issues.
According to Glassdoor, collections managers at Rent-A-Center only get paid
$18 per hour.
$16 to $18 per hour. That's a shockingly low amount to be paid for such a difficult and dangerous job. Most rent-to-own stores are located in poor neighborhoods with little economic opportunity, allowing them to hire collections managers for relatively cheap wages. The rent-to-own industry preys on the poor and financially illiterate customers who are enticed into seemingly low weekly lease payments but end up paying multiples more than the value of the products. This has trapped millions of people into a cycle of poverty, where they end up spending almost all their disposable income just to keep the furniture in their
What kind of coins are these? This ain't American money. That's it for tonight. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and do that and like the video. I will see you in the next one.